We know there are different opinions from fans and F1 drivers about the Netflix documentary, Drive to Survive. We're talking about Daniel Ricciardo here, who thinks the show is making Formula One pretty accessible to a different fandom. So without further ado, let's dive into the video and find out why Ricciardo thinks the F1 fanbase has changed since Drive to Survive. First off, Ricciardo was one of the first few stars on the show.
I'm Daniel Ricciardo and I'm a car mechanic.
Nico
Hülkenberg.
He's right. Think about it. When you take a sport like that, you've got to add some extra magic because this time, we're taking it to a streaming platform. And yes, you're definitely going to see a bunch of F1 fans there. But there's also another fan base that Netflix needs to cater to, so they have to make something out of this. Something that's the perfect show for everyone. As for the Australian driver, he says that the success of the Netflix series has pretty much turned F1's fandom away from being the same old niche group of followers. If anything, the fandom's getting bigger. Rewind a bit to 2019, because that's when the first season of Drive to Survive came out, and it focused on the 2018 season, and it didn't take long for the series to become massively popular, as it brought a new audience to witness the world of Formula One. Plus, the narrative-driven aspect of the show has kept these fans super engaged.
Everything is different.
Coming into a new team, new people around me.
You always have doubts.
Fast forward to now, the Netflix series released 4 seasons and continues to scale new heights.
Competition.
But let's not forget the on-track drama of the 2021 season. With that said, Ricciardo came on the Your Mom's House podcast and was asked the burning question about his popularity exploding. You probably remember that our Australian driver was one of the stars of the first season, and boy was he humble as he laughed with the show's hosts, Tom Segura and Christina Pazitsky.
How do you feel about the season?
Terrible. I want to quit. I'm kidding. Please don't play that.
Following up, Ricciardo appreciates the new fandom the Netflix series brought. When talking about the fandom, he didn't hesitate about how he's seen massive changes in F2 fans over the past few years. And clearly, they've changed drastically right after the series came out. Because let's face it, there was a niche group of followers who had their heart and soul in F1. For many, it was the only sport they loved so much. But then again, Ricciardo mentioned that the rest of the world was up to date on every sport other than F1. The point is, it just wasn't accessible all these years. But the series changed that. It brought in personalities and stories that let people form a genuine connection. As for the F1 fans, they're sorted. They already love the sport. They love seeing their favorite stars. Yes, they probably don't like all the flair added to the drama, but they're here for it. The massive difference here is that Netflix brought a completely different audience into the world of F1. Not to mention, Ricciardo confirmed that he wouldn't be racing next season. Alright, when we're at such a crucial point, talking to the Australian star, how could you not ask about his plans for 2023? We all want to know because there's a little hope that he might just end up racing on the F1 2023 grid anyway. So when the hosts asked him about it, we're not gonna lie, we had our hopes up, but he said what he said before. He's not going to be racing next year. Now, he's hopeful for an epic comeback in 2024, and so are we. On the other hand, rumor has it that he's got a potential reserve driver role coming up with a leading team like Red Bull or Mercedes next season. His eyes are set on F1, and he's not going anywhere else. But then again, Ricciardo talked about how he needs to take some time off, and if he's looking at how the contracts are shaping up and all of those formalities, 2024 seems to be a smarter option for him too. For now, he wants to take a year off to reset and rebuild so he can return in 2024 stronger than ever. And let's not forget he also talked about his hate-love relationship with the sport over the past few years. Think about it. He had 2 disappointing seasons with McLaren that had his contract terminated a year earlier than planned. But despite all of that, there's so much more to the sport, because of which we can't seem to give up on the F1 world. Coming up, has the Netflix effect been a good thing?
Right.
Firstly, let's talk about the intensity of the competition itself. If you think about it, tiny margins make all the difference. And when we say tiny, we mean it, because we're talking about a tenth of a second at most. So it's an insanely competitive sport, and while the F1's popularity has pretty much exploded thanks to Drive to Survive, we're still debating about the impact of the new fandom on the tribalistic fighting between driver and team supporters. Because let's not forget that stuff like this spilled all over into social media toxicity, and many times it even went as far as outright hostility and hatred. In an article about how this toxicity has recently ramped up in the last few seasons, the two-time world champion Max Verstappen stepped forward to talk about social media hatred. He said it needs to be addressed and even branded it as damaging and hurtful. We gotta say, we agree with him. Plus, it was also refreshed in Red Bull's Sky Sports boycott. If you didn't know, one of their reporters spilled out an unbalanced commentary that the team pointed out and simply didn't tolerate. If you need any hints, it was about last year's controversial World Championship. Coming back to fans, let's face it, vehement fandoms have been around throughout the sport's history. If anything, the constant nature has skyrocketed over the past few seasons, and the timing of it matching the Netflix series, creating a new fandom, doesn't seem like a coincidence after all. Up next, Ricciardo issues a defense of paid drivers who reach the F1 level. Simply put, the Australian believes that paid drivers got a pretty bad reputation among F1 fans, and we agree that paid drivers aren't exactly the best ones out there, but they still offer financial incentives to teams for hiring them, whether through their wealth, sponsors, or family. On the same podcast, Ricciardo opened up about the F1 world and even talked about the little intricacies that fans seem to miss. So when it came to paid drivers, the host didn't shy away from poking fun at the ones on the grid just because of money. And believe it or not, that was a dig at Aston Martin's Lance Stroll, whose father Lawrence bought the former Racing Point squad in 2018. Need another example? We've got Williams' Nicholas Latifi, whose personal sponsorship roster got him a seat with the Grove-based squad for the past 3 seasons. So there are quite a few F1 drivers out there, but despite their skill, a lot of F1 fans don't seem to take them seriously because of the money factor. We're not going to lie, it's something that'll set a lot of people off. But it turns out Ricciardo is no longer up for that kind of thing. Finally, Ricciardo talks about how you need funding from day one. He feels that drivers who manage to make it to F1 thanks to some financial backing don't deserve the criticism they get, because then again, they've got almost all of the same talent and on-track success to reach the level of an F1 driver. So why aren't they appreciated for that? He talked about getting into the sport in the first place. Like, it's not just F1. Even when you go-karting as a kid, you'll spend thousands of dollars, unlike football, where all you need is a great ball and a pair of boots that will cost you around a few hundred. So clearly, at any level, you will need some type of funding. It's not like money is totally out of the equation here. So why are we judging the paid drivers so hard? Ricciardo made the point that the driver still needs to have plenty of paces. Otherwise, the sponsors backing them up aren't going to stick around anyway if they don't see any talent to justify their investments. So even the paid drivers are at that level that earns them respect. So why are we depriving them of it? That's a wrap for this video. What's your take on Daniel Ricciardo's views about how the F1 fan base changed thanks to the Netflix series? And while we're at it, do you think paid drivers don't get the respect they deserve at F1? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you at the next one.